Today is one of those days. It's kind of dark and gloomy here in Spokane. This last week we had a beautiful spring week. In fact, I think yesterday it may have reached 80. Not quite sure, but I did get my garden planted. So my edible garden is out and doing its thing. We have tomatoes, we have tomatillos, onions, garlic, cilantro, pretty much anything that would go in salsa is in my edible garden. So now we just are gonna cross our fingers and hope that I don't kill everything. So that's been how my week is going. But if you saw my last video, I shared with you my mood board that I created for this year. Really trying to get a control on the way that I'm shopping. And instead of buying things that I think are, pretty, buying things with more intention. Now, that was kind of the first step in all of this because after I did that, in the last video I shared with you, I went thrifting and got a few items. In fact, they're still back here because, I haven't had a chance to incorporate them, and also I was cleaning them. So I was able to identify some areas that I still have a couple of gaps that I want to fill in my wardrobe. And that was kind of where the whole beginnings of that project came from, really was with all of the projects that I have to sew. And I didn't want to just keep making things that I wasn't going to wear, that, were just going to be kind of a waste of resources, in all honesty. So I was trying to figure out, what do I actually need in my wardrobe? Okay, so with that said, what I need and what I can make right now is my casual clothes, my everyday clothes that I'm going to wear when I wake up, that are comfortable so that I can sit in this office. This is my work office. No sewing machine, no crafts in this room. This ADHD brain can not get that distracted from my day job. But what can I wear in this room that is comfortable, that, moves with me, that I can still be on camera for all of my work meetings and look put together. I have a creative job, so I don't have to be, fancy, but I definitely want to look put together. So anyway, all of those things to say, I have finally identified my next project, my item from my mood board. So we're gonna zoom in right here to the mood board, and I wanna point out this little number right here. So this little plaid set, I've seen a few iterations over on Pinterest. I actually tweaked the colors in this just to get it more along the colors that I was looking for. I'm actually not going to do this color scheme, but what I am going to do is a boxy cropped top, and then I also want to do an elastic waisted, casual pant. So that was what this image inspired, but I'm going to use what I already have. Again, if I don't have to go out and buy anything new, I'm not going to do that. So recently I did create my toile, or my sample. Okay, I used a sheet. I used a sheet that I had, which I do a lot when it comes to creating samples of some of the items that I'm gonna make. But these are the pants that I made. They are actually from a vintage 1970s pattern, super simple, 2 pieces, and they are a bell bottom. And bell bottom, high-rise bell bottoms are like one of my favorite styles to wear. So I made this. It's pretty close to accurate when it comes to sizing. I am, with the pattern, I am gonna add a little bit more to the back because I do have a little bit more in the behind area that I do want to ensure that I don't have that it doesn't go down in the back, if that makes sense. So now that I've done the sample and I know that that pattern is going to work, now we're going to use the good fabric. Oh yeah, friends, we're going to use the good fabric. This. Now, this fabric right here, and I say good. Okay, by good, it just means that it's fabric that I actually purchased, that I've been holding on to because it's linen, and I think that I've probably had this for 2 years. I'm pretty sure I bought like 3 yards of it because there is so much here. But it's this really nice lightweight linen. It's in a black and white, so that's going to be a neutral. And then, I can add like a pair of orange platform sandals with it, which I think would be super cute, and that is kind of the plan. All right, so let's go start with the pants. We'll take these downstairs, cut out the pattern, and see how that part turns out. Okay, so I'm down here in my sewing room now, which is our dining room area, but it's, you know, I've taken it over, and that whole area over there is where I cut my patterns. But I wanted to share a couple of things with you. Number one, I sewed the front seams together, and I was really pleased. Matching patterns, by the way, is one of those things that I tend not to do. By the way, sorry, the dishes are running right now, and my husband is playing, streaming online video games. Not streaming, he's playing video games with a friend online. But, so here is the front. Okay, these are the two front legs, and I intentionally lined them up so that it looks intentional and there aren't any squares cut off. Now, I could have, if I had more fabric, I could have pattern matched 100%, but because I mentioned before, I'm trying to make a matching top to go with this, and I barely was able to, you know, to cut the pattern enough that I think I can do, I may have to do a sleeveless top, or I might have to do a patchwork top, which, you know, that doesn't bother me. So anyway, so this one I'm pretty pleased with, but I just did the back, and I thought it was good, and now I'm looking at it, and see, the difference here is that it just looks so unintentional. It looks like a mistake. So I'm gonna seam rip this back seam out and get that, but this back is gonna look so great. And now the front, I'm really sad, but I can't do anything about it. You know, we're just gonna have, the front is not gonna quite be as lined up. Now these, again, are meant to be, for me, they're gonna be like this linen kind of house pants, so I'm not planning on wearing these out, but you know, the struggle is real. So anyway, so I'm gonna seam rip this, grab my handy seam ripper, and sew up the back seam again, just to make sure that these are aligned, and that will, at least that'll be that. At least that'll be that. Okay, I pinned this, probably like 100 pins, just to make sure that it turned out like this. Now that right there is what you're looking for. Perfect, perfect, perfect seams. So this will be the back, and then again, this will be the front. I'd be happier if it matched, but alas, it is what it is. All right, the Hubs is over there making me some chili. There's a Lil hanging out, begging. So here's my conundrum, and I think, and actually I already know what the answer is gonna be. Just take a look, right? Here is the back panel with that perfect seam right there. And then here is the front panel with nothing lined up. Now, you know, you're typically, depending on what you want to do, you have a couple choices. You could just leave it the way it is and just have some imperfect pants. But guess what? I can't do that. My perfection is, yeah, Bill knows. Yeah, Bill knows. So what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna take the extra fabric. Can look over at the sewing desk here. The extra fabric that was going to be for the top, we are going to cut a new leg panel so that we get perfectly lined up stripes. It is what it is, and then I will just use the leftover scrap fabric and maybe add, you know, like a pocket or sleeve or something like that in the checkered pattern. So we, it's like, you know, Bob Ross always says, happy little accidents. Maybe this is a happy accident. All right, so here is the front panel redone using fabric that I was gonna use for the top, but I mean, you can't deny how beautiful that is and how beautiful that is, and together they're gonna look a little bit more professional, a little bit more cohesive. All right, well, it's a brand new day. I just finished my day job, so now I can get back to working where we left off yesterday. So last night, where I finished was with these perfectly matched seams in the front and the back. I mean, look at that, it's beautiful. And then what that had me do is I had to cut some of the fabric that I was gonna use for the matching top. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But what I'm really focused on right now, finishing the seams, right? So some people like to use serged seams, and they have a place, 100%. For this particular pant, you know, this is gonna be an elastic pant, but I still want it to be a little fitted, right? It's gonna be a little more of like a fitted elastic waist as opposed to like a PJ pant. It could totally lean PJ pant with this print. I mean, right? Like imagine a flannel. Anyway, so I thought about it all night long, and what I decided to do was to do a flat felled seam. I think that's what it's called. I've just always done it, and I never knew what things had, you know, what names things were called. But I went back and forth because what it does is it interrupts this beautiful, you know, pattern matching here, because I did go over it. Let me see if I can show you here on the top. And what it does is it encases the seams on the inside so it's not visible. It also reinforces the seams because this linen is really, it's pretty sheer, I realized, which is going to be interesting when it comes to wearing this, I realized, but I wanted to reinforce the seams as well. So I honestly think that the black stitching is not that noticeable. I can tell that it did kind of do something funky up here. It's not laying so perfectly anymore because they were perfect before. Now we are gonna fold this down, remember, and put a waistband in here, so that won't be that noticeable either. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that on this side. Now, how you're gonna do this flat felled seam, I'll show you. All right, well, typically you see this type of seam on the sides of jeans, right? But what we're gonna do is here on the crotch area, and I may end up doing it for the leg hems as well. It depends, it really just depends, but I do like the way that this is turning out. All right, so we'll see here, this is the front, okay, these are the two front panels sewn together. This is the unfinished seam. This is where a lot of folks would just serge those together, press it, and call it a day. But what we're gonna do is we're going to actually take one of these sides, this side over here, because that's the side we're going to stitch it to, and we're gonna grade this down. So we're gonna cut it really close here all the way down to the end. And then once we cut that, we're going to press this side over like this, and then we're gonna press it over one more time to encapsulate, or to encapsulate, is that the word? I don't know, to put the other side inside. And then we'll just top stitch all the way down. And then that's where we're going to get just that stitching across. Okay, so I have 4 minutes before my next work meeting. And during my lunch, I did a quick little sample to, today is another day, by the way, you can't tell. So for the front of these pants, I want to do a pin tuck, essentially just like a raised seam all the way down the center. It just gives it a little bit more of, you know, an edge, just something that's a little bit more cool looking. I may have mentioned this before, but I made a couple of samples here. This one over here. This one uses a dual needle and a pin tuck foot. And then this one here is just sewn flat with the seam and then pressed. And I have a poll going on Instagram right now on which method I should use. And right now the flat seam is winning. So we'll see how that goes. I have just a few more hours of my day job and then I can dive back into these pants. I'm really hopeful that I'll be able to finish them tonight. Because I would like to start on the more creative piece, which is going to be the top, because, you know, I don't know if I have enough fabric. Oh, Lily is coming to visit me at work. There she is, my little old lady. All right, well, back to it. All right, friends, it's another new day and I wanted to give you an update. So I didn't record much last night. I was having some frustrations with my own perfectionism, and what had happened was this. So I added everything. So all I have to do is do the hem on the bottom. But what I struggled with the most, and I ended up seam ripping. Wow. It's been a long day at work already. Seam ripping both of the sides that I had done for those seams. Because of the way that I put these pants together, it made it really challenging to do the flat felled seam all the way down the leg, because it's a tube, and trying to stitch that just wasn't quite working out. It was wobbly on the outside. I didn't like it at all. So this old pattern that I use, this 1970s pattern, had me put these pants together in a way that I never have done before, that I've never learned before. And if you're not doing flat felled seams, it works perfectly. But if you need to do pockets or anything like that, it's not quite going to work out. So anyway, what I ended up doing, because I had already graded the seam to do the flat felled seam, so that made me very limited in what I could do. So I ended up just doing a rolled seam. So I just rolled the hem all the way down and then just stitched it closed to just to put those loose threads on the inside. So it's not as professional as I'd like, but again, I have to keep telling myself this doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, these are for me. They just need to be something that I will get longevity out of and that I will continue to wear. So those have been resolved. The side seams are done. Now I put them on for fit. Okay, and I want to show you a couple other things here. This is the back. Where's our front? Here's our front. Okay, so here's the front of the leg. I did end up doing these pin tuck seams all the way down the front. And that's just gonna give it more of a shape and also really accentuate the flare when I have them on. Now, when I tried them on, I did realize this fabric is pretty sheer. It's this really sheer linen. And, you know, because it's so sheer, I'm not sure if I like the back. Now, the alignment of the print in the back is fantastic. It's so fantastic. In fact, hold. Okay. The alignment of this back seam is great. Like when I have this on, it looks so nice, but because of the sheerness, I think I'm gonna add pockets. Also, because I did not add pockets on the sides and because I did the rolled hem on the sides, I can't go back and add the pockets. So, you know, you win some, you lose some. What I ended up doing for the pockets is I have a pair of pants that I love the way the pockets fit. So I took a piece of paper and I took my pants right here, these Grrls. Oh my gosh, some of the best high-rise flare pants I've ever owned. This is my second pair. So I just took and outlined the pocket on paper and then added a seam allowance around it and cut it out. So that's where we are there. Then I just used some scrap fabric that I have. You know, shout out to the Kraken. I'm sure I used this. I think I made the hubs a few things with this fabric. Pretty sure I made a passport cover, which turns out passport covers are super annoying. So anyway, so I'm just using this just for placement because, as you may remember, I don't have very much of this fabric left and I really want to make a matching top. So this is that leg that I had to replace just to line up the print. So I think if I use this leg, actually I know if I use this leg, I'll be able to have enough fabric for little patch pockets back here. But I needed to see if they're actually going to work So that is what I'm doing now. So I'm gonna go down, press all the seams under, place them on the pants, pin them, and then take a look and see if I like them. If I don't like them, all I have to do is do the hem, and then these pants are done. So, you know, we'll see. But again, I am just spinning. These pants really should be like a 90-minute pant, but I'm just overthinking everything. Hey, it's Thursday. Yeah, it's Thursday. Have I finished my pants? No, because I actually ended up taking out the waistband. So officially last night, I was so frustrated. I did so much seam ripping for a couple of reasons. Number one, you know, I finished the pants. They were essentially done. I finished the hem, I finished all the seams, I put them on, and I didn't feel good, right? And the whole point of making your own clothes is so that you can have unique items, and also so that you feel good in your clothes. So one of the things that when I first created this pattern, I added a little bit of length to the back because I wanted to make sure that I had enough room for my backside. Because I do have a unique shape, like all of us, right? We're all unique. We're all human, we're unique. So for me, I thought that would be enough. But with this particular fabric, because it does have draping to it, it didn't quite work out. So when I put them on, I was getting a little bit of pull in the front, but then what was happening is I was getting a lot of extra fabric right in the belly, with where all the extra fabric was hitting. And for me, I don't want that. I don't want to have a lot of loose fabric, even though it's an elastic waisted pant. That is what typically happens with elastic pants for me, is that there's a lot of this ballooning of fabric right in the belly area. And I don't like it. I find it super uncomfortable and I don't want it on my clothes. So the solution, what I'm doing, I actually took the waistband out. Oops. Here. And I did want to show you, I added one patch pocket yesterday. I didn't finish the recording or the process because I was super frustrated, but I did get this little pocket added. I only added one because I didn't want to add a lot of weight to the pants, but I did want to have something so that if I, for me in particular, when I get up in the morning, you know, I usually put my phone in my pocket, go down, get my breakfast, and come back up for work. Now, sometimes I'll just leave it at my desk, but you know, if I need to bring it downstairs for whatever reason, I need a small pocket. So anyway, what I ended up doing is taking out the waistband because I feel like what was happening is my rise was not long enough. And I can actually see when I look at it this way, I need a really long rise because I do want it to come up to my belly button. And in this case, you know, that's about how tall I want the rise, but because I have to use the fabric or this pattern, had you fold it down and create the casing for the elastic, I mean, look how low that rise is. And yeah, it was not big enough for me. And that's where a lot of the problem was occurring. And because of that, the way it was pulling the fabric was making it balloon right in these two areas. So here's my solution. I'm gonna alter this pattern. We're gonna alter this pattern. Everything's already done. Again, hems, the bottom, but what I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to use more of the fabric. My coordinating top is getting smaller and smaller at this point. It may just be a little patch pocket on another item, we'll see. But I'm going to add, okay, an actual waistband to this. That way I can keep the length for the rise. I have another piece of fabric. I'll try to coordinate, I'll do some pattern matching, and I'll add this waistband to the top, and that will give me probably about 1.5 inches. And I think that will help solve most of the issues I'm having. Also, I am gonna take this fabric in on the sides. Since I've removed the waistband, I can actually do some altering. I did play around with doing some basting stitches on the side last night, just to pull it in and see if that would help as well. So anyway, we're doing a little bit of altering, but honestly, I think that it's so important because, you know, again, if you own something, if you own a garment, a piece of clothing, and you won't wear it because it doesn't make you uncomfortable or because it makes you uncomfortable, or it's not the first item you go to in your closet, it's just a waste. It's kind of like just having trash in your closet, and we don't want that to be the case. So anyway, that's my next goal. We do have company coming tonight, and I have a really full work day today that I need to get back to. So hopefully I'll be able to get these pants done. I don't know. I'm also doing work with Spokane Zero Waste on Saturday, which is probably going to take the whole entire day. So I don't know. Let's fingers crossed that I'll be able to at least get these pants done. Not the top, but the pants. And guess what? It's Tuesday. That's right, friends. Where did the weekend go? Well, I spent Sunday in bed with a horrific headache. I get migraines. They've been coming a lot more often recently, which is super frustrating. So I didn't get to do any sewing or any video updates this weekend. I did volunteer on Saturday. I did some work with our Spokane Zero Waste group. Got to assist in a Sew Your Own Undies class, which was super cool, especially because guess what? I am not a knit expert. In fact, I would say I am a very novice with knits. It's not my thing. I don't wear, I feel a lot of, well, and I say I don't wear a lot of knits. I wear t-shirts, and I also wear like yoga pants, but I don't make them. It is not something that I enjoy. And you don't have to be an expert in every part of sewing, by the way. You don't. Right? There's other folks that do that, and I'm going to rely on them, or I'm just going to continue to focus on my cottons and my natural fibers, and that's where I'm going to spend my sewing energy. But anyway, back to the pants. So I finished the pants, as I think I mentioned, and you know, they're not perfect. And that's okay. And what I mean by not perfect is, so, you know, here we go. I added a new waistband, and again, we were down to the last little bit of that fabric that I have, which I'll talk about in a second. And so I had to kind of piece together this waistband. It's multiple pieces of fabric, and does it match? No, it does not line up, which is very sad because the rest of these pants, you know, are so perfectly lined up. But c'est la vie. This is what we're going to be dealing with. What I ended up doing with this pair, by the way, with the waistband, is after I stitched in the elastic, I actually ruched the fabric to the right and to the left, and then I put in some stay stitches on the sides. So right, can I even show you? What am I doing? So over on each side, I just did a row of stay stitches and a row of stay stitches over here. And what that allowed me to do is to try to keep this front area as flat as possible. So I had mentioned that I don't like this extra fabric that comes, especially with elastic waisted pants. So instead, you'll see in the back, there's a lot more of the fabric, and I'm fine with that. I just didn't want a bunch of extra fabric here in the front. So these, my friends, they are officially done. But as I've been talking about this whole video, is the whole thing was I wanted to do a matching top and a matching pair of pants. That two-piece boxy, you know, crop top with a high-rise, you know, casual pant is not going to happen. As much as I tried to salvage that fabric, and you know, yes, I could stitch things together, but it is such a specific print, and I already spent so many hours print matching with this pair. You know, I could do just kind of a throwaway top, but I don't want to do that. The whole point is that I want to make things that I will wear and that have longevity. So instead, we are going to make something super simple that I will actually wear on a regular basis. And it's a great way to use up a square of fabric. And so we are going to make a bandana. And I love a bandana. I buy bandanas. I think they are a great way to accessorize, especially if you have any, you know, trinkets like rings that you can use just to put your bandana on. It's a great way to add a little bit of flair. And you can wash them easily, and you don't need a lot of fabric. So that's what we're gonna make with the leftover fabric. I think I have enough to do a 23-inch square, which I made a bandana this weekend that was 22-inch square, and it was actually perfect. So I'm gonna make this bandana, and then we'll put a look all together. We'll wrap it up, and then I get to decide what the next project is. So if you're still sticking around, if you've been here in this video and you are enjoying listening to me ramble on, let me know, what do you want me to make next? I feel like I certainly want to make another pair of pants because I have some really great fabrics. In fact, I have 3 fabrics that I really want to make a nice structured pair of pants. And I'm trying to use free patterns so that I can share those with all of you. This pattern that I used for these pants happened to be a vintage pattern. But I would like to try to use up some of those, or try to use some of those free patterns just so I can do a little pattern review for you and make things a little less restrictive if you're looking to try something new. I did see last night on YouTube there was a pattern that I might use, but then there's a pretty old mood pattern as well. There's actually a few mood patterns that I'm thinking that I'm gonna try. The problem is now I can't make up my mind. And just for future reference, if you find any patterns out there in the wild that you want me to try before you test, let me know, because I am absolutely willing to do that, because for me, I do that. And I've been sewing my whole life pretty much, but I love watching someone else go through the process and see, all of the gotchas, or maybe a pattern, the fit isn't quite what I was looking for. So for me, I find a lot of value in watching those sew with me videos or those pattern reviews. So let me know, tag any of those patterns below. And if they're not free, if they're from an indie designer, let me know that too, because I'm always willing to support those smaller folks as well. So let's go make ourselves, well, I'm saying this, I'm not quite done with work. I probably still have like 30 more minutes of my day job, and then I'm gonna go down and make a bandana. Okay, so to wrap things up, here's the bandana. Here are the pants. I love them together. I can wear them apart. We didn't have enough to make a top, but I promise I will make a top. I am going to plan to make the free Saatchi box top because I do want to share that with all of you. And as always, if there's a pattern you want me to try out, or a technique or anything like that, make sure to put that down in the comments. I am happy to. My ADHD brain is always looking for some dopamine and looking for something new to do. And all of you really do make that happen. So thanks so much, everybody. And until next time.